All right. Hello, everyone. We're happy to be here. I'm Rachel, as always, and I am joined with my friend who is a style coach, and her name is Missy Baker. And I'm super excited to have her here. She's going to be vulnerable and she's just going to talk a little bit about her own money story. And I'm so excited to hear about it. So, Missy, thanks for being here. This is our first Zoom together.
Yes. Hi. Thank you. I'm
Yes.
so happy to be here. Thank you for extending the invitation.
Absolutely. I'm so happy. It's always so exciting and empowering to me when other people are willing to share their stories
Mm,
around money because, I'm sure that anyone listening knows that there's just so much shame and guilt around money and people feel so much emotion and oftentimes negative emotion around it. And I one thing I try to do with my clients is help them to feel more confident and comfortable. And I know
mm,
that you've been pretty vulnerable and open about your money story. And I just think it's really important to share, and hopefully other people can hear that and probably relate to the things that you're saying, and hopefully will make them feel a little bit more empowered and comfortable talking about their own story.
mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, the vulnerability piece, being able to talk about it is huge. And you can
Yeah.
apply that to anywhere in your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Being able to talk about it because we're all so much more similar than we are different,
Yes.
but we've built up these walls, and that's what I did. That's what I did for years and years and years. And I won't go back and give you the whole thing. We don't have time for that.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, like I grew up in a very like perfectionist, performance driven household. Like I think
hmm
many of us,
hmm
many of us did. The more I talk about that, the more people can relate to that. And so this idea of having this like perfect facade, even
Yeah.
if it wasn't what was going on inside, was super important to me. And even like 6 months ago, I probably would have been like, no, Rachel, I don't want to like
Mhm.
share this for
Yeah.
anybody in the world to see because it's been a process of breaking that down. And I think that's
hmm
like the first thing that I'll say to anybody that's watching this is a process. Like you're not going to
hmm
be like, oh, I'm going to decide to do this and then I'm going to be perfect the
Yes.
next
Yes.
day.
Love that.
But so with that stage set, like debt was something that was never really talked about. Now, the more I've done this work, I've had more memories come up for me where I'm like,
Mm.
oh, I'm pretty sure my parents actually had more debt than they let
Ouch.
on that they
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
But this perception was, you know, sure you can have debt, but pay it off every month, pay it off in full, and it'll be fine. But don't hold on to it. Don't hold on to it. That's bad. And we just never really talked about it.
Yeah.
We never really talked about it.
Very
And
common.
so I mean, my little background of my story that I'll weave in, and then my husband's too. Like we both we both graduated as engineers. He a few years after me. He racked up more student loan debt because he took a few extra years to get through
hmm
school. Engineering
hmm
school is no joke.
Yeah.
To get through the classes are tough, and so we did that, but engineering is like, oh, you get good paying jobs. And so for quite some time, we were making good, really, really good money. Like by
hmm
all stretches of imagination, we were achieving the American dream or whatever you want to
hmm
say. Like by the time I left my career in engineering about 3 years ago, almost exactly. And I was, at about $100,000 of income there. And then my husband, around, I don't know, 70, 80, something like that. So
hmm
we were quite comfortable. And
Yeah.
that actually masked a lot of things because we weren't really that comfortable. We were racking up the debt
Yeah.
in the background.
Yeah. It is so common for people to think I make a good salary, so I shouldn't have these money problems. And then that's what causes people to not want to talk about it because they think this should,
Oh,
poor people, right, should have these
mm-hmm,
problems, not me.
mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is that is not the case because I like one quote I love to say is it's much less about how much you're bringing in than what you do with the money that you're bringing in.
Oh,
I personally know a career coach, or not, sorry, a financial coach, and she only works with people that make $200,000 a year or more, and she has a successful
mm,
business. So
oh,
yeah,
I
so it's
believe it.
not it. you don't have to make minimum
Mm-hmm.
wage, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
have
Mm-hmm.
those money problems. So yeah, continue.
Yeah. Well, and the thing was, is that the amount of money that we were making helped to cover it up enough
Sure.
that it didn't feel like a struggle,
Mm-hmm.
and we were racking things up, and then we had our child, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, children are expensive. I
Yeah.
was super fortunate. I was still working my engineering career then. I was super fortunate that I got 3 months of full pay maternity leave, which, like, I feel like is still in a lot of cases
Yeah.
unheard of.
Yeah.
So all of those things were lining up for us well. And then I got to the point that I was fed up with going, and that's a whole nother story for another day, but I was fed up of going to work. Lots of things went into that. I wanted to be with my daughter. She was 18 months old at the time. And I really quit my job with no plan because I was so miserable. And
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't necessarily always in hindsight recommend that. There's a lot of great like mindset shifts you can do to, stay in that position and build something.
Yeah.
But it's part of my story. And I think I had this whole idea of, oh, like leap and the net will appear. And while that's true, I had a fundamental misunderstanding of it. I had a fundamental misunderstanding of it back then, that we weren't going to have to change anything about our lifestyle. We could
Ah,
just continue
sure.
to like be fine.
Right.
And that got us in a lot worse shape. And I
Yeah.
think we were about in $50,000 of credit card debt, somewhere around there at the beginning of 2020. And then, of course, with some of the relief that came along because of COVID, we got some financial advice. I took money out of my old 401k and we paid off the debt. And I'm like, okay, clean slate, we're good now. And what didn't happen is my husband and I did not get any sort of foundational advice. Okay, what do we do now?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just kind of like, oh, well, like keep an eye on things and don't rack the debt back up. And it sounds simple, right? Like, well, yeah, of course, we just paid it all off. We're not going to rack it back up. That would be so
Sure. Uh-huh.
stupid.
Uh-huh.
Like that's
Yeah.
literally what we thought. And lo and behold, like here we are 2 years later, and we have more than that in credit card debt. We have about $70,000 in credit card debt right now. And the fact that I can tell you that and not be like, is also a miracle upon itself, because it just is. It
And
is. It is what it
well,
is.
it's so important to know where you are. Like if,
Yeah.
I know people who honestly don't even know what their debt is, right? They're like, I just
Oh,
make these minimum payments and I don't even know what it totally adds up
yeah.
to.
Yeah.
But you can't make a plan to better
Mm-mm.
yourself in any realm, even outside of money, unless you really see where you are right now. Like I can't say I want to lose 10 pounds without having any idea how much I weigh right now, because how would I
Mm-hmm.
know when I
Mm-hmm.
lost 10 pounds? Or how would I even know if I needed to lose 10 pounds?
Right.
So yeah, that is so, and I love the story that you're basically saying you got some help and so you paid it off, but that was kind of like an easy way out, but you
An
didn't
easy fix.
learn the tips and
Yeah.
the tools that you needed to maintain that. And that is so, so, so important. That's why I don't believe there's any easy outs to things. It's just like, I suppose maybe some of these diet pills work. I don't know. But my guess is that
Yeah.
you're not going to sustain that if you don't
No.
learn the tools. So I love that. That's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's so funny you bring up about like diets and crash diets and all of that kind of stuff, because what's helped me on my money journey is realizing, because I've also gone through a whole health journey, given up the like cyclical dieting where you lose weight and you
Mhm.
get it back, you lose weight, you get it
Yeah.
back. I was like, oh wait, this is the same pattern.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And once we can start recognizing those patterns, then it doesn't become easier, but it becomes less of a, oh, this is a shame on me thing of, no, wait, this is the way, some of the systems are actually honestly set up for us to
Yeah.
do. Because like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I had to tell you, this is a present day moment of this morning. I was in my email and I have a credit card for Ann Taylor Loft. It's paid off. I haven't spent on it in like 4 or 5 months now, I think. That might be a little bit excess. Maybe it's 3. I don't know. Anyways, I've got a $7,000 limit on it. And I literally got an email this morning from the bank that runs that card saying, "Hey, you have $7,000. It's time to go
Yeah.
shopping."
Don't forget. Don't forget. Here I am.
And I'm like, with what I do and shopping and all of that, that used to also be a big thing for me of like, oh, I'm always shopping and buying new things. But I'm like, the systems are set up that way. And right or wrong, I mean, they're in business to make money, and you could do
Sure.
that whole debate.
Sure.
But I realized it was just this cyclicalness. And what we did after we paid off that debt, when we paid it off in that quick way, it was like this, oh, okay, we're fine, we're good. Oh, we can spend a little extra
Yes.
here. Oh, we
Yep.
can spend a little extra here. And
Mm-hmm.
we always were doing that cycle. We just used to have, almost
Right.
$200,000 of income that hit it. It didn't make it super uncomfortable. Like, it
Right.
wasn't great, but it wasn't like, ooh, like we have to do
Mm-hmm.
something about that.
Mm-hmm.
And really what's happened this summer really has been the time where we had to get really honest with ourselves, my
Yeah.
husband and I both,
Huge.
and stop blaming each other, because that was a
Mm.
thing. I
Mm.
especially did that to him. I'll own up to that. I especially would be like, well, you're the one that pays the bills. Why didn't you tell me about this?
Okay.
And now I look back at that and I'm like, ooh, that was really mean. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that was
Well,
really mean.
and people like the research shows that finances are the number one reason for like arguments and breakups, but I disagree with that to a point. I think it's the lack of communication around finances
Mm,
that is really the culprit. It's
yeah.
not the amount of money that you owe or the amount that you make or don't make. It's about the lack of communication. So just like you said, like instead of communicating in a healthy way, you were both upset and stressed, and you were taking it out on each other, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, to be completely honest, I didn't wanna look at it.
Yeah.
I didn't
Oh
wanna look
yeah.
at it, so
A lot
I
of
was
people are
putting
like
the
that.
burden of it on my husband, and he was trying to
Mm.
do the best that he could
Yeah.
to at least make ends meet and, like, do this, and I'm sure I haven't I we well, we've kind of had this conversation, like, that he felt alone, and then
Yeah.
here I am just, like, going, "La, la, la," out and
Mm-hmm.
about, um, and we had this really, like, come to Jesus moment of, okay, we have to be really honest with ourselves. We've both been just burying our head in the sand and trying to get by. And like, for me, burying my head in the sand was, I wasn't even looking at things. Or what I was doing is I would be out like shopping, for example, for clothes, since that was a very, very
Uh-huh.
common thing for me to do. And I would check the money in our bank account on my phone when I was shopping. And I'd be like, oh, we've got like $1,500 in there. A
Ah.
couple $100 isn't going to be a big deal.
Uh-huh.
But because I was not plugged in, I didn't know that, oh, wait, my husband had just set up a $500 bill to come out, and this was
Right.
coming out tomorrow,
Yep.
and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and I was charging those things. I wasn't putting it in the debit card. I was just looking at that as like
Ah.
almost a
Uh-huh.
security blanket. And
Yeah,
then I'd be
sure.
like, oh, I'll just charge it on my card, but we got money in the bank. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
And for him, his realization was more like, oh, I'm sitting here just trying to do this alone, and I'm not ever saying like, hey, babe, like
Right.
we need to talk,
Right.
like
Yeah.
we need to have this hard conversation, because like what you're doing, because I mean, it was a lot of my spending habits, at least on the regular, that got us there. And so like owning that and having that conversation, and really I started looking personally in our Mint app. That is what we are using every single morning, checking on things. We're regularly then having conversations about, okay, this is bills coming up, these are coming up. We have like some shared Google things now. And
Mm-hmm.
sheerly just the intention of, okay, I'm going to look at this and understand where our money is going, made a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
we haven't even really set any budgets or anything. Now we've talked about a few things about like, okay, is this a priority? Okay, oh, we could treat ourselves to Starbucks. Yesterday we treated ourselves to Starbucks because it was the first day of the pumpkin spice latte. So it's like, oh well, we'll do that today. We've got a little room to do that today.
Uh-huh.
But it's that intention. It's that
Yeah.
intention behind it of like, we are intentionally doing this. We are intentionally doing this, and we're intentionally not doing that.
Right.
Um,
And that's the first step. I think a lot of people sometimes they don't start with this process is because they think the first step is sitting down and putting everything on paper and creating a budget. And that can be very overwhelming for people.
Mhm.
People are like, but I don't even know what I have, and now I have to really look at it. And while I 100% think that is very important to do, and you should put
Mhm.
together a budget,
Mhm.
which would be the next thing I would recommend you guys do. But
Yeah.
the initial piece is just to have that intention. Like, first of all, I need to stop this because now I see that these credit cards are at $70,000 and I see what my interest rates are. You can look to see how much you pay on
Mhm.
interest every single month.
Mhm.
And that is money that your own hard-earned money that you are throwing away. You're throwing it away.
Wow.
You're not able to use
Mhm.
it on whatever you want to use it on, even though you are earning it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you need to take a hard look at that. And before you even see like what your total is, and again, before you write anything down, just look to see, okay, what are my, like, what does this credit card, what does this one credit card look like? Here's my minimum
Mhm.
payment, which also that minimum payment is also money that you're not able to spend on what you want to spend on it because you have to make that minimum payment,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And then look at your interest and how much you're spending every month.
Yeah.
But before that, even you have to have that like thought, like, this is important to me, and I'm going to do something about it. I no longer
Mhm.
want to live with this sort of anxiety and maybe causing some tension with my partner, because I want to have a life where I'm able to spend my money on what I want to spend it on. And that's really
Mhm.
why we pay off debt. Like, why
Yeah.
do you want to get your credit card paid off? Well, because I want more of my own money that I can do what I want with
Mhm.
it. It's just like me, like I'm working on paying my car off right now, on track to pay it off 3 years early. So I'm really excited about that. Um,
Nice.
but why I'm doing it is because I don't want to make that car payment every single month. Like, I already
Mhm.
have a car. It's not like I feel like I'm getting something new every month when I'm making that payment.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So I just want to be able to spend it on vacations or saving for the future or whatever it is that folks want to do. So we are like over time. So I try to keep these short, but that is so typical. But Missy, this has been fantastic. I really, really hope that folks listening to this can relate to your story. I mean, I've heard your story not outside of you, like I've heard other people tell your story so many times because it's so similar to what so many of us experience. We grew up in a home where we just don't really talk about money. There's like a perception that we're doing better than what we really are. And I've heard a lot of my clients come back and say, I now realize as a 40-year-old that we were not that well off, but as a kid, I always thought we were, because that was
Mm.
what was portrayed to them
Mhm.
because our parents didn't want to admit it either. Um, and then, yeah, people having good jobs, people making good money, just feeling like, oh, gotta make a lot of money so I can just
Mhm.
spend whatever I want, whenever I want to do it.
Mhm.
And then that's what causes folks to get in trouble. And then, yeah, even if like you come into an inheritance or someone loans you money or gives you money, um, it's not going to fix the root cause of how you
Mhm.
got there to begin with. Um, and now your story is coming around, right? You're at that turning point when
Mhm.
you're like, okay,
Mhm.
I've got to stop. Like, you and your husband both are like, we've got to turn this and start making
Mhm.
it a more of a
Yeah.
priority because we're tired of
Yeah.
feeling frustrated and stressed about this debt.
Yeah. And that was one of the biggest things we learned I know I learned, and I think he kind of knew, but we put it together of, well, in Mint, if you use Mint, this is not an
Mhm.
advertisement for that, but if you
No,
use
it's
it,
a good
it
side though.
actually sorts out your finance chart interest charges. So you can actually sort that as like a spending, like a spending category of what you
Uh,
spent money on.
okay.
And you can like pull the data out and you can chart it. And I was like, we're spending how much? And I think there was
Yeah.
one credit card that it didn't do it for whatever reason. I was like, oh, plus that credit card.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was the biggest place that I was struggling to get my energy behind. Cause like that's the other thing that I did. I was looking at everything that we spent. I'm like, oh, that's part of that intentional spending. Oh, I can get my energy behind that we pay for our cell phone bill every month because
Right.
my cell phone bill allows me to do all these
Of
amazing things.
course. Yep.
And I can get my energy behind the food that we buy and all of that. I was like, I cannot get my energy behind these interest charges. And so we're actually doing some things to consolidate and make a lower interest rate for ourselves through a home equity line of credit, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to feel better. We can make further progress to our
Yeah.
debt, because our debt to interest ratio is going to be a little bit different. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
the next thing on our list is talking about budgeting. But I was amazed by how much we cut our spending just by paying attention to what we're
Yes,
spending.
yes. Well, it's just like there is something called autopilot spending, right? And that's just where
Mhm.
we automatically go out for lunch when we go to the office. We automatically go to Starbucks every morning. We automatically every Thursday get pizza takeout. I mean, whatever it is, there's just things that we're just, we autopilot spend. We're not really
Mhm.
thinking about those things. And then we dream like, oh, I wish I could do XYZ. I wish I
Mhm.
had the money to travel or to buy a better home or whatever it is. When there actually is a chance that you do have the money to do that, you're just spending it in other ways. And so that's one reason that of course I advocate for a budget, because that helps you see where your money is going. Okay, like I'm
Mhm.
making $100,000 a year, and when I look at just simply my mortgage and my car payment, I have tons of money left over. Where the heck is it going? Well,
Yeah.
you don't know that until you start really tracking and looking at your spending.
Mhm.
But that's called, just if you said the word too, intentional spending. So go from autopilot spending to intentional spending. Create some of those goals, which don't do this right away, but eventually you'll get to a point where you're creating those goals, or these are the things I want to do, and how do I make sure I can get there? And then you can go back and look at your budget and say, well, is this Starbucks that's costing me $6 5 days a week really important to me? Or would I rather put that money on a trip to France? So like you have to like really think about what you're spending. So I think that that's great. You're on a very good path. You're on your way. I'm really looking forward to hearing more of your
Mm.
success stories. Maybe we can do this again in a couple months when you guys have made
Yeah.
some progress.
Yeah.
That would be
Close
really cool.
close the loop. Because yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
the fun thing about sharing when you're in the middle of it.
Yes.
Because when you've gotten to the top of the proverbial mountain, it's like, okay, but I mean, no, we're just in that
Yeah.
first few levels.
Yep. Yep. I love it. Well, thank you, Missy, so much for joining. This was
Yeah.
fantastic. And, I would love to just give you a chance to tell folks who you are and what you do, and where we can
Mhm.
find you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm an intuitive style coach. I really help women with that intentional getting dressed and finding their style and building it from the inside out. I just absolutely love to see that transformation, and it is so similar. It is so similar
Yes.
to
Yes.
feel good about your body, feel good about your money.
Yep.
It's all similar. You can usually find me. I hang out a lot on Instagram, and my business is Soul to Style, SOUL, like soul to style, and you can find me on Instagram at that handle at Soul to Style. And that's where I share a lot, do a lot of videos, a lot of the reels, and
Yeah.
all the
You do.
things, and
Yeah. Your
it's in
Instagram is great.
stories, and that's literally the best way to connect with
Yeah.
me right
Great.
now. So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, your Instagram is great. I'm Rachel Dorsey, financial wellness coach, and you can find me at effortlessbudgeting.com. And you can just search on YouTube, which hopefully this is where you're watching, but YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, you can search Effortless Budgeting, and you can find me there if you want more information. But again, Missy, thank you so much. I have
Yeah.
loved this, and I am looking forward to part 2.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.